Good evening, everyone. This is Commissioner Rathel. I'm going to go ahead and call to order the Sacramento County Planning Commission for February 14th, 2022. Lydia, will you go ahead and call the roll?
Absolutely. And Commissioners Rathel?
Here.
Borja?
Here, and happy Valentine's, everyone.
And Wong?
Here.
And we do have a quorum.
Excellent. Will you go ahead and read the statement?
And this meeting is live streamed and temporarily closed to in-person public participation. The clerk's office is in the process of hosting hybrid public meetings that will provide board members and members of the public with the option to participate in the meeting, either in person or remotely. Thank you for your patience and support. To make a verbal comment at today's meeting, dial 916-875-2500 and follow the prompts to be placed in queue for a specific agenda item or off-agenda matter. When the chair opens public comment for a specific agenda item or off-agenda matter, callers will be transferred from the queue into the meeting to make a verbal comment. Written comments are always accepted. Please feel free to send your email comment to boardclerk@saccounty.net, and your comment will be routed to the board and filed in the record.
Thank you so much. And with that, will you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. With that, we're going to go ahead and move on to item number 1. And I do believe we have a late request from the applicant. If Chris is on the line.
Yes, commissioners, this is Chris Pahuli. We did have a conversation with the applicant team. They are on the line as well, I believe, and indicated to staff that they would like to request a continuance of this item to the next meeting, which would be March 14th, 2022.
All right. With that request, I'm happy to move that we continue the item until the next regularly scheduled meeting.
And Commissioner Rathel, I'd like to go ahead and read the item into the record, if I may.
Sure. Go ahead.
Thank you. Item number 1 is a development plan review and special development permit located at the northeast corner of the Winding Way and Fair Oaks Boulevard intersection in the Fair Oaks community. The environmental document is that it's exempt.
Perfect. And with that, I'll make a motion to continue the item until the next regularly scheduled meeting.
I'll second that.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion before I call for a vote?
And Commissioner Rathel, just to confirm, are we continuing it to the March 14th meeting? Is that what your motion is?
Correct.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right. We go ahead and call the roll?
Yes, Commissioners Borja,
Yes.
Wong,
Yes.
and Rathel,
Yes.
and the motion carries.
All right. Continued item number 1. We'll move on to item number 2. If you want to go ahead and read it into the record.
Yes, sir. One moment, please. Item number 2 is for a general plan amendment, community plan amendment, rezone, tentative subdivision map, exception, and design review. It's located at 8595 Castleman Road on the north side of Castleman Road and approximately 3,500 feet west of Elk Grove Florin Road in the Vineyard community. And the environmental document is an addendum to final environmental impact report.
And do we have a staff report this evening?
Yes, commissioners, we do. Emma Patton.
Can you hear me okay?
We can now, Emma, yes. So I was just introducing you,
Great.
Emma, for the staff presentation today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So good evening. Again, this is Emma Patton. I'll be presenting the Castleman Northwest project for you. Next slide, please. This project is located at 8595 Castleman Road, west of Elk Grove Florin Road and north of Castleman Road in the Vineyard community. The site is vacant with mature eucalyptus trees along the southern border. Next slide, please. The site is currently zoned as Agriculture 10, but the Florida Vineyard Community Plan and the General Plan both designate the site for agricultural residential uses. The applicant proposes RD5 zoning and corresponding General Plan and Community Plan designations. The site is surrounded by single-family residential uses to the north, east, and west, and vacant or rural residential uses to the immediate east and to the south. If you take a look at attachment 1 of your hearing package, there's several maps, including a vicinity map, a zoning map, and a composite map. That composite map details the relationship between the proposed Castleman Northwest project before you today and the nearby Castleman Ranch and Castleman South subdivisions. The Castleman Ranch subdivision is north of Castleman Road and to the east of the project site. This subdivision is developed between Castleman Ranch and the proposed Castleman Northwest subdivision is a nearly 18-acre property zoned for agricultural uses. The Castleman South subdivision is approved but undeveloped and is south of Castleman Road and east of the project site. Next slide, please. There was a planning application at this project site known as Vintage Creek Number 1, which included a rezone, a tentative subdivision map, special development permit, exception to county code, and a affordable housing plan, but that application was ultimately withdrawn. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, the Castleman Northwest project includes a general plan amendment from agricultural residential to low density residential, a Florida Vineyard Community Plan amendment from agricultural residential 1 through 2 to residential density 3 through 5, and a rezone from agricultural 10 to RD5. In addition, the project includes a tentative subdivision map and exceptions to Title 22 of County Code and a design review. And I'll go into a little bit more detail on the tentative subdivision map and the exception request on the next slide. The tentative subdivision map is shown here. It divides a 17.9 acre property into 66 single-family lots, 1 detention basin lot, a landscape lot, and a channel lot, all in the RD5 zone. The tentative subdivision map also includes abandonment of several on-site portions of right-of-way and irrevocable offers of dedication. New easements would be established as through the conditions of approval. The Union House channel lot runs along the northern portion of the site, and the basin is at the westernmost edge of the property. The landscape lot, which is proposed, is just east of the basin and will feature a 10-foot wide multi-use trail, which will stub to the south and be dedicated to Southgate Recreation Park District. The subdivision is accessed via Castleman Road from Elk Grove Florin Road, where new single-family residential areas between 40 and 100 units are proposed. Our county code requires that they be served by 2 points of access. Given that only 1 point of access from Elk Grove Florin Road via Castleman Road is provided, this project includes an exception to this requirement. The applicant has provided their justification for this exception, which is presented in attachment 5 of the hearing package, along with an exhibit that details potential future connections to the south, which may provide a second point of access to the subdivision should the development pattern continue. And that exhibit is provided in attachment 6 of your report package. Next slide, please. Several segments of Castleman Road will be improved as a part of this development, including at the project's frontage and off-site in front of the adjacent 18-acre agriculturally zoned property that's just in between the Castleman Ranch and Castleman Northwest sites. Castleman Road at the Castleman Ranch frontage, at the Castleman Northwest frontage will include a 36 36 feet of pavement. Ultimately, should the southern side of Castleman Road be developed, it will include a 42-foot right-of-way, curb to curb, consistent with the Foreign Vineyard Community Plan. In addition, a temporary walk is proposed to connect the Castleman Northwest and Castleman Ranch projects to provide a safe pedestrian environment where that outlier 18-acre agriculturally zoned property is located. Next slide, please. An EIR was prepared for the Foreign Vineyard Community Plan when it was first adopted. That EIR considered several land use alternatives for the planned area, including an alternative in which this southwest portion of the, or southeast rather, southwest, the southwest portion of the plan was designated for RD3 through 5 land uses. So therefore, an addendum to the prior environmental document was prepared for this project. The project would result in less than significant impacts with the implementation of the mitigation measures as provided in the MMRP. Next slide, please. The project was considered by both the Vineyard CPAC and the DRAC prior to today's meeting. The DRAC recommended that the project be found in substantial compliance with the design guidelines. The Vineyard CPAC recommended denial of the project with 3 yes votes, 2 no votes, and 2 absent. Members expressed concerns related to a lack of park site, the basin possibly being oversized, a lack of guest parking, and poor emergency vehicle access. In response to some of the CPAC's concerns, I will note that a park is not proposed on the project site, as the development will be subject to in lieu fees as opposed to parkland dedication at the request of Southgate Recreation Park District. The Castleman Ranch project, just to the east of this project, will include a park, or does include a park. It's a constructed park, and is estimated to be about a 10-minute walk away from the Castleman Northwest project site. In response to the concerns related to the basin possibly being oversized, the Department of Water Resources has reviewed the preliminary drainage study provided with this Castleman Northwest application and confirmed that the basin is adequately sized to serve the development. In regards to the guest parking concerns, our Department of Transportation has confirmed that guest parking will be available on street to serve the subdivision. And lastly, in response to the emergency vehicle access concerns, the Sacramento Fire District provided their conditions of approval to ensure that they would be able to adequately access and serve the subdivision. Next slide, please. So although the Vineyard CPAC recommended denial of the project, based on the DRAC's recommendation, and given that the project is compatible with its largely low-density residential context, is consistent with the applicable lot standards, and complies with the Foreign Vineyard Community Plan as amended, staff is recommending approval of the proposed request. Next slide, please. There we go. This recommendation is broken into 2 parts. There is the action that the Planning Commission is recommended to take, and the action the Planning Commission may be recommending the board to take. So first off, staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve Resolution 1, which recommends the board approve the general plan amendment. Next slide, please. Staff also recommends that the Planning Commission recommend that the board determine the previously certified EIR and addendum is adequate and appropriate for the project, recognize the MMRP, approve the Foreign Vineyard Community Plan amendment, adopt the rezone ordinance, approve the tentative subdivision map, approve the exception of Title 22, and find the project in substantial compliance with the county-wide design guidelines. Next slide, please. So that concludes my presentation. I am available should you have any questions, and the applicant team, including Bruce Walters, is also in attendance this evening.
Thank you for that presentation, Emma. Do we have questions for staff this evening, commissioners?
And this is Lydia, the clerk of the board's office. Commissioner Raythel, I just wanted to give you a heads up that we do have a couple of callers in the public comment queue. So how much time would you like to give them when you're ready for them?
Let's give them 3 minutes each, please.
Perfect, thank you.
Commissioner Wong, Commissioner Borja, questions for staff this evening?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Borja. But go ahead, Commissioner Wong.
Oh, I was just going to say I don't have any questions for staff tonight. Thank you.
Hi, this is Commissioner Borja. I just want to go back to the concerns by the CPAC. And if we can just kind of walk through the concerns and then the responses one more time, Emma, if you do not mind. I remember this item being a little bit of a point of contention in 2020. And if you could just walk through the concerns again and the responses, that'd be great.
Sure, absolutely. So some of these concerns were concerns that were provided during the public comment period of the CPAC. Some of those concerns were echoed by the CPAC members, and other of these concerns were provided by the members exclusively. First off, one of the concerns that was provided related to a lack of a park site. So the Castleman Northwest project, when it was originally submitted, actually included a park site on actually near the basin. But when Southgate Recreation Park District reviewed the original tentative subdivision map, they determined that the parkland dedication requirement for Castleman Northwest, based on the number of lots being proposed, would result in such a small park that they felt that they were not going to be able to provide the type of programming that a neighborhood park would typically be desired of a neighborhood park. And so instead, Southgate Recreation Park District requested that no parkland be dedicated as a part of the site, but instead that in lieu fees be provided to provide funding for perhaps future parks or future park programming, including equipment or sports parks or what have you. So that's how that piece was handled in terms of coordination with Southgate. And then just wanted to note sort of where the nearest parks were then without a park being provided at this particular location. And that would be a park at the nearby Castleman Ranch subdivision, which is constructed, and it would be about a 10-minute walk for those residents at Castleman Northwest to get to the Castleman Ranch park site. One of the other concerns was that the proposed basin appeared to be oversized to some CPAC members. Our Department of Water Resources did review the preliminary drainage study prepared for the Castleman Northwest project. That basin has opportunities to expand south and will not only serve the Castleman Northwest project, but will also serve the approved but undeveloped Castleman South project. So the size of the basin is sized appropriately according to our Department of Water Resources, who analyzed and accepted that preliminary drainage study prepared for this project. In terms of guest parking, there was concerns related to there not being adequate guest parking, concerns that the roadway width wouldn't be able to support guest parking. Our Department of Transportation has provided assurances that the roadways as provided in the Florin Vineyard Community Plan and as ultimately proposed on the tentative subdivision map are meant to support on-street parking, and so guest parking would be able to be provided through those on-street parking. And then the final sort of concern was related to emergency vehicle access, and this concern related not only to the width of Castleman Road and making sure that emergency vehicles would be able to travel down Castleman Road, but also concerns about there only being one single point of access to the subdivision. So with that, at that time, there was some confusion of the CPAC meeting. There was some confusion about exactly what the width of Castleman Road would be. And I think many of the CPAC members had been confused by the sections provided. I believe that they were reading it to mean that the road would be 18 feet wide, but in reality, it will be 36 feet wide. Since the CPAC meeting, Sacramento Fire District reviewed the project and provided their conditions of approval to assure that they would be able to serve the subdivision. The project continues to only offer one single point of access into the subdivision, which is requiring the exception to Title 22 of County Code. Does that answer your question, kind of give you a little bit more of a background on those concerns the CPAC had?
Yes, thank you. And just follow up on the 36-foot lane for Castleman. What is Castleman currently at right now?
Castleman Road at the Castleman Ranch project is 32 feet wide. So I think that's probably what you mean when you ask what the width of Castleman Road is today. Castleman Road will continue onto the project site and be proposed at 36 feet wide.
Understood. And am I right to assume that there were no material changes to the application outside of staff perhaps looking at the concerns of the CPAC board in August 2020 and still recommending for moving forward? So there were no material changes to the design of the project?
That's correct. There were no material changes to the design of the subdivision following the CPAC meeting, only clarifications to some of the CPAC's comments. The one thing that did change on the subdivision map between the CPAC meeting and this evening's hearing is not so much of a material change, but just sort of a difference in how the tentative subdivision map reads. The lot where the landscape lot where the trail is proposed adjacent to the detention basin, while it was always intended that there would be a multi-use trail running adjacent to the basin, it was not a separate lot as it's shown today. So today it's a separate lot to make sure that there is appropriate methods to dedicate that lot in the future so it can be owned and maintained by Southgate Recreation and Park District. But that's the only change that occurred.
Understood. And again, sorry, if you can just remind me, Emma, the proposed action by the CPAC at that time that was voted were to deny, right, the project.
Yes, that's correct. They recommended denial of the request with a split vote of 3 yes, 2 no, 2 absent.
Okay, understood. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Commissioner Borja. I also kind of want to dive in a little bit on the emergency vehicle access. I understand, I think all of the other CPAC concerns, and I'm comfortable that those have been addressed, but the emergency vehicle access, still have some concerns and questions over. I think the comment was made that at some point a street is wide enough to be labeled a collector street and therefore is okay to be a single point of access. And sorry, this isn't my technical forte, but 32, 36 is thrown around. Where is the breakover point where we don't require 2 points of access?
Yeah, I think where you may be seeing the relation from a 36-foot pavement width to a collector is coming from the applicant's justification for the exception. So I'll let Bruce speak to that maybe and sort of his justification as to why the 36 feet of pavement would suffice in this instance. But what I will say is there's two different codes that we're looking at here. There's there's Sacramento County Code, which is requiring this exception to Title 22, given that there's a single point of access. And then there's the fire code. And at times, Sacramento's fire code may not always be exactly consistent with what our county code says, or it may have definitions for what satisfies 2 points of access differently. So that's just one clarification to make is although Sacramento's fire code may indicate that access is adequate and there's 2 points of access being provided, Sacramento County Code may otherwise indicate, based on our definitions, that 2 points of access is not satisfied and therefore requires an exception to county code.
I wish that made it more clear. That it did make it much more clear to me. Was an EVA considered? I guess that's when I've seen this in other projects, maybe not in this jurisdiction, but in other jurisdictions I've seen. Hey, let's, we don't necessarily need a 20-foot paved street going to the community that the public can use, but in the instance of an emergency, say an accident blocks off that 700 feet or some sort of fire or something happens to where that community is restricted, or access, ingress or egress to that community is restricted, there is a secondary access just on a hard packed DG road with a couple of gates that drop in there. Was that considered, or is that something the county is supportive of? I'm just curious. That's typically what I've seen, how we resolve these in other jurisdictions, but I didn't see it in this.
Sure. Yeah. There's a lot of barriers to achieving some sort of temporary EVA for this particular project, given its adjacencies. So the where it would need to connect to would be out to Elk Grove Florin Road. And so the options would be pretty minimal, given that there's the railroad corridor to the west, and then to the north it's entirely developed, and then Castleman Ranch is already a developed subdivision as well. So really any temporary emergency vehicle access would need to travel through multiple off-site parcels, and there'd be some significant challenges with getting all of those property owners to agree to that temporary access, and also would have to travel quite a long distance to get to, say, Carlisle Avenue to the south, which would probably be the closest point it could travel to.
Okay. Well, that answers my questions for staff at this time. Thank you. With that, we'll go on and move to the applicant's presentation this evening.
Hello, Chair.
Lydia, could you go ahead and swear in the applicant?
Thank you. We'll get Mr. Walters sworn in. Mr. Walters, if you wish to address the commission, please prepare to be sworn. We ask that you raise your right hand, and as you know, the appropriate response is I do. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give this commission is the truth, so help you God? If you do not swear, do you so affirm?
I do.
And if you'll please state your name for the record and make the statement, I have been sworn.
Bruce Walters, representative for the applicant, and I have been sworn.
Thank you so much.
Commissioners, thank you for attending on Valentine's Day. I appreciate you taking the time. Also on the team tonight is Paul Hart with McCann Sopps, project engineer, available to answer questions that you may have. I'll try to be brief, but I did want to cover a few things. This has been a 2.5-year process. Project received extensive drainage analysis, particularly the basin sizing, as well as review by the county fire as described. We believe the project is ready for your consideration tonight. One of the items I wanted to touch on was the Barbero property, which is about 2.5 acres between the project and the Castleman Ranch property to the east. Just for the record, my client, Gus Galaxidis, tried for over 6 months working with the owner and the attorney to acquire that property. It would have made a more coherent a pattern of development. Unfortunately, despite those efforts, they were not able to reach an agreement, and so that property was not included. But I just wanted to touch on that. I think the main point is the access, as Emma described. This is kind of a unique situation in the area, with it being relatively separated by the existing drainage channel on the north side and the railroad tracks to the west. The Castleman Ranch project to the east, unfortunately, it did not include a street stub into the Barbera property. There's an elbow there instead. If there was a street stub, we most likely would have been able to make an internal connection, and we wouldn't be having this conversation. But we've designed this project and the offsite improvements with the best possible opportunity to provide safe access. The mentioned 36 feet of pavement across the project site and through the Castleman Ranch project. It also includes a 5-foot off-site sidewalk along the Barbera property, so that will ensure a consistency with pedestrian access along the north side of Castleman Road. I think one of the main points is the 36 feet of pavement. I have argued functions as a collector road because there are no front-on lots and driveways and on-street parking along the Castleman Ranch frontage. This really serves as an effective collector street, with the 5-foot bike lane and the 13-foot, two 13-foot travel lanes. It essentially can accommodate the volume and the access along Castleman Road as if it was a collector. Commissioner Rathel, you asked the difference between what's proposed and the collector street. It's basically 3 feet of pavement in the travel lane. The curb, gutter, and sidewalk is the same. The bike lane is the same. The only difference is a 13-foot travel lane versus a 16-foot travel lane. Now, keep in mind, the traditional collector street is designed for higher volume through street and a 40-mile-an-hour design speed. Castleman Road will not be going through in the sense that it's serving a high volume collector function. So the 13-foot travel lane is more than sufficient width for access and circulation and emergency access, I would add, as well as the 5-foot bike lane serves as an additional buffer or retreat area for additional access. That's why I say the 36-foot pavement section functions as a collector access for this situation. Another point is that internal loop circulation provides second point of access through the Castleman Ranch project. So the only single point frontage is a relatively short 700 feet between our project and Castleman Ranch. So the single point does not run along the entire length. It's only along a relatively short portion. And again, we provided that full 36-foot pavement length along that, as well as other portions. Commissioner Rathel, you asked about EVA, and I think Emma described the offsite options to the south. We've looked at that, identified 5 properties that would require offsite easements, approximately over 1,300 feet in length. There are existing houses, and the acquisition of offsite right-of-way for that connection, the cost of construction was determined to be infeasible for a small 66 lot subdivision like this. If it was a larger project of say several hundred lots, then you can capitalize the cost of that over a larger number of lots. That notwithstanding, the fact that 5 property owners would have to basically be willing to sell an easement across their property renders the possibility of offsite acquisition not occurring and essentially rendering the project infeasible as well. The access exception request has been fully reviewed by Sacramento County DOT, County SIPs, and as Emma mentioned, Sac Metro Fire, and they are recommending approval of the request. I think Emma touched on the parks and schools very well. I will note that the drainage basin is sized not only for this project and the approved Castleman South project, but the larger Castleman Carlisle corridor. This is a regional drainage facility, and so it will be assisting this project as well as other properties for development in the future. We are in agreement with all 102 conditions of approval. Planning Commission, PRC, and DRAC is all recommending approval. I will note that the CPAC negative vote was on a 3-2 split vote. We believe the project is in order and is ready for your action tonight. Here to answer any questions that you may have. Request the opportunity to respond at the end of the public hearing, and also recognizing 3 members on the commission tonight would request the ability to request a continuance during the hearing if necessary. Thanks again for being out on Valentine's night, and here to answer any questions you may have.
Commissioner Wong, do you want to kick us off with questions for the applicant?
I do not have any questions tonight on this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Borja, questions for the applicant this evening?
Just one quick question, and thank you for your presentation, Mr. Walters. So 66 lots. What's the volume of? I'm looking at your composite map. What's the anticipated volume of traffic that your company or your application considered to this? And would it be true to assume that these lots are bigger than the Castleman Ranch 255 lots that are kind of on the same street in Castleman?
Well, in terms of traffic generation, I think the traditional ADT was 10 units, 10 trips per unit. That's not only the houses, but also service trips, etc. So 66 lots, that would be 660 trips during a 24-hour period. I think Emma can expand more on that if necessary. The lot size, I think the 55 by 105, 55 by 100 that's proposed here is comparable in size to the Castleman Ranch project.
Thank you.
Mr. Walters, I just have one question for you. You said the area to the south. I appreciate the attachment that kind of goes through the options for eventual connection to the south. You know, I guess if I lived in the neighborhood, I'd want a walkable route to school also that's not along a major collector. So can you kind of give us an update on what is the south? Does Castleman South eventually use that option 3 to connect down? Kind of what's the lay of the land to the south of the project? And is it like, hey, this is, 90% chance we're going to end up with a connection to the south? Or is this like hey, going across option 1 and 2 are out and option 3 isn't really part of that project? So just trying to understand what the likelihood is.
Sure. Probably the most likely connection to the south is going to be that option 3, directly south from the Castleman South project. There's 2 10-acre parcels there that are fairly good sized. A lot of the other parcels in the Castleman Carlisle area are relatively small, and development of those smaller lots usually takes an assemblage. Usually those lots have more home improvements and site improvements that folks are less willing to sell. So I think those 2 10-acre parcels directly south of Castleman's South along Carlisle are probably the most likely next candidates. And that would include the street connection, presumably, through the property south to Carlisle Avenue.
And Castleman South is a tentative subdivision map. Sorry, I'm asking you about a project that's not in front of us tonight. I'm just trying to understand, and hopefully you have the information for me. Is a tentative subdivision map for Castleman South approved with that stub coming out pointing toward the south?
Yes, and I believe that property is has plans for development, has filed improvement plans and plans on constructing this year.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Walters. Appreciate answering our questions tonight, and we may bring you back after public we'll bring you back after public comment.
Thank you.
And with that, we'll go ahead and open it up for public comment. Lydia, do you want to walk folks through that process?
Yes, we're going to have Alma's going to take care of technology this evening, so you will have 3 minutes to speak if you're on the phone listening, and just follow the prompts by the assistant clerk of the board.
Go ahead, sir. You can start with your public comment.
Yeah, hi. My name is Harinder Joel, and property on Castleman Road, and I'm in support of this project. It just makes sense. It's a naturally infill area. It's not really rural there no more. It's surrounded all by houses. So I definitely think we need some development there. It'd be nice to have some sidewalks, walk all the way to the back. So I'm definitely in support of this.
Does that conclude your public comment, sir?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to hang up now, sir. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Hello? Hello?
Hello? Hello?
Hi, are you ready to make your public comment?
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to unmute you, and then you have 3 minutes, okay?
Okay.
Go ahead. With your public comment, you have 3 minutes. You have to turn the meeting down in the background, sir, if you have it playing in the background.
Yep.
If you have the meeting playing in the background, please turn it down.
It's muted.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, sir, with your comment.
Hi, yeah, my name is Taylor Bollinger. I'm the Vice President of Forward Planning for Beazer Homes, Northern California. Beazer Homes controls approximately 20 acres in the immediate area. We're supportive of the project as we believe it's going to bring much needed housing to an underserved portion of the market. The project is an ideal location for market rate housing. Lennar has a major housing development in the near area. Taylor Morrison has very recently constructed homes right next to Castleman Northwest. Richmond American and KB are also building in Vineyard, close proximity to this area. This area of the county is ready for more homes, and it makes a lot of sense that it does, as it's near the urban services of the county in Elk Grove. The area is bordered to the north, east, and west by residential. We believe this project is a logical place for future housing, and it's really more of an infill location than a new growth area.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yep, that's it.
Okay, thank you for your public comment. That concludes the public comment for this item.
All right. Thank you to everybody that commented tonight. We appreciate you taking time out and giving us your thoughts on this item. With that, we'll go ahead and close public comment. I'll ask Mr. Walters if he'd like to come back on and address any of those public comments.
I have nothing additional. Thank you.
All right. Well, with that, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Thank you, Mr. Walters. And we'll move on to commission discussion and a vote. I'll kick us off. I feel like my primary concern, I think a lot of things have been addressed that were part of the CPAC's concerns. My primary concern is the EVA. I'm not as I think all of you guys know, I'm not a big fan of exceptions, and it seems like we constantly have exceptions. I would hate to see a number of communities constructed with a single point of access. In this case, it doesn't look like there is a good option around it. And there are options to get out of the neighborhood should something occur. Maybe not in vehicular form, but there would be ways to get out of the neighborhood. So I can get on board for it. Although I'd rather see an EVA that's there just in case. With that wide road, I think we would be able to provide access, and the idea that it would somehow be cut off is a very, very, very slim likelihood. So with that, I'll go ahead and move staff recommendation.
This is Commissioner Wong. I'll second that.
This is Commissioner. I'd just like to make a couple of points, if that's okay, Chair.
Absolutely, Commissioner Boyle. I was about to ask you. Please proceed.
Thank you so much. For the public's record, I was one of the 2 no votes there against the. It's a little bit of a opposite. So the vote back in the CPAC was to deny the project. I had voted to support the project. I think that you're right, sir. The EVA is potentially is a big concern to me. However, I don't foresee penalizing this project because of the opportunity for future projects south of Castleman, such as Carlisle, to potentially have that connection. We want to be cognizant that in kind of future planning and also in projects that as much as we try to prepare for the worst, things like Paradise and other unfortunate instances in the past have kind of bit us back a little bit. And so I would, while I would be supportive of the project tonight, I'd really like to echo the sentiments of the community in the CPAC, but also some of the members of the public that wrote about safety access. And if we could make sure that that's considered in future development within Castleman and Carlisle Avenue. But with that, I'd like to move for the vote, if that's okay with you.
Sounds great. Lydia, will you go ahead and call the roll on this item?
Yes, sir. Commissioners Borja?
Yes, support.
Thank you. Raythel?
Yes.
And Wong?
Yes.
And motion carries for staff recommendation.
Thank you all for working through that one. That concludes item number 2, and we'll move on to the planning director's report.
Hey, good evening. Chris Pahuli again with you. I just have a couple of items just to provide an update on. The first is at your last Planning Commission meeting, we heard the Mosaic Law use permit amendment. The Planning Commission ultimately voted to approve that use permit amendment. I wanted to let you know that a appeal was filed by some of the interested parties that were at the meeting. And we have tentatively scheduled that appeal hearing before the Board of Supervisors for April 26th. So as we get closer to that meeting, I will keep you updated. Also wanted to mention that we were planning to have multiple items for the first round general plan amendment heard this week. However, the housing element, there were some changes that needed to be made to the housing element. So that general plan round has been continued to March 8th, where the housing element, there's another general plan amendment, as well as the Hickory Hanks general plan amendment and rezone will be heard. So again, that's going to happen on March 8th, not this week. And then lastly, just wanted to note that we do not have any items for your next regularly scheduled meeting, which would be February 28th. So that meeting will be canceled. Your next Planning Commission meeting will be March 14th. And at that time, I believe we will be back to a 5-member body on that March 14th meeting. So looking forward to it. And that's all that I have for the Planning Director's update.
Thank you. Any miscellaneous scheduling items this evening?
None that I have.
Perfect. And Lydia, any public comments?
And no, there are no additional public comments this evening.
All right. With that, we'll go ahead and adjourn the Planning Commission at 6:23 p.m. Thank you all and enjoy the rest of your Valentine's Day.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good evening.